Now let me tell you something else. In a Shidduch, you got to be lucky. Okay? I'm telling you the truth. You have to be lucky. You could get a real schluck. You can get a real magefa on your head. If, God forbid, you hit the wrong woman. For this, you have to have a schus in heaven. That God should be good to you and have mercy over you. That you shouldn't, chalila v'chas, get the kind of a lady that's going to eat you up alive. So you got to remember, and you have to bear in mind at all times, that this is something that you have to pray for. You have to pray that the one that you meet should be the right one. Now, you got to understand, it's very interesting. You see that Torah provides for divorce. According to, if it's so wonderful, this whole business, how can there be a divorce? But the answer is, you could sometimes, everything could go very nice, and everything could be very wonderful. And nevertheless, there comes a point when you got to get divorced. She's no longer for you. She's no more for you. Either because she turned out to be different than what you thought, or it becomes a situation that is unbearable. And there are many, many different situations that could arrive in a marriage. There are many, many different points which could be a source of problems and trouble in a marriage, and that's why you must get divorced. Otherwise, Torah wouldn't provide for the divorce. But by the same token, you can't be overly smart when it comes to a Shidduch. You just have to do the best you know how. We are not angels. We are human beings. And there are certain ways that a person is attracted to a woman. It's the eye sees and the heart tempts. This is the way God made man. And it has to be this way. You know, it's the old story. The previous Rebbe once had a chassid, went into him, and he asked about a Shidduch. So he told the Rebbe, she's not so nice. She's not so nice to look at. She's not so pretty. But she can have children. So I'm going to marry her. So the Rebbe says, listen, if she's not so pretty, this you don't have to overdo. You don't have to really stress too much the sheker achein v'hevel hayofi, that beauty is vain. I mean, it's not so gefährlich if you have a pretty wife. You don't have to really go overboard. And even if she's ugly, you should take her because she can have children. This is not the way you should approach a marriage. And you find that in the Gemara tells us that the way they used to dance before the Kala, what did they sing? Kala Novach Sida. Kala Noah, a beautiful Kala, Vachasida, and a very, very refined one. So it seems that there's something to beauty also. And when a person gets a beautiful wife, he's proud of her. Now, when you look for a wife, what should you look for? Now, you got to understand there are many reasons why people get married. If there is an ulterior motive, there are certain people who get married for money. In other words, they got a good catch. She's a rich girl. She comes from rich parents. And they feel, this guy feels he's going to have it pretty good. I know that there is a certain yeshiva where the guys are on the auction block. You know? If you give so many years of kest, he'll get married. You know what kest is? You should be on his father-in-law's payroll. He shouldn't have to do anything. So it's 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, it's according. So the best guy gets life kest. His whole life he never will have to do a thing. The old man, he's going to keep providing the money. He'll put away enough dough that he can live on it, and all he has to do is have a good time with his wife, sit and learn, and eat and drink and sleep and have a good time. That's it. There are certain people who get married for yichus. Oh, you know whose daughter this is? Rabbi so-and-so, Mr. so-and-so, Senator so-and-so, Congressman so-and-so, Shlamazel so-and-so, whatever it is. So, they feel they have a certain ego. And because of that ego, they marry, the girl is not so hotsy-totsy. Nicht gefährlich. But because of the yichus, that they're going into this kind of a family, and this is going to give them a certain prestige, it's going to give them a certain lift in their ego, this is one of the reasons that they get married. Another reason is opportunity. There are certain people who marry girls because they see an opportunity there. What is the opportunity? They'll be able to go into a business. They'll be able to go into politics. They'll be able to move in certain circles where without that connection through the wife to the in-laws, he wouldn't have. So this is one of the things that he goes for. And it's not a true love in marriage. This is a thing, this guy has an ulterior motive. Either it's the money, or it's the yichus, or it's the opportunity. And there are also those who go for the superficial beauty. In other words, if she is a gorgeous girl, he's going to go for her. Notwithstanding the fact that she may not have many other virtues besides having beauty. That she's a raving beauty. She may be a raving beauty, and a raving beauty is very attractive, but this is what he goes for. And he doesn't think about what could be subsequent to that. What happens in these cases? So you find sometimes that a person who gets married for either one of these four reasons suffers a tremendous amount. If he gets married for the girl's money, she will always tell him, now listen here, you. What were you before you married me? Not for me. Where would you be? You schlep you. So it was because of me that I made your mensch out of you. And I gave you a life to live. So look what a lucky guy you are. And you got to know you got to keep me like a queen. You got to do this for me. You got to do that for me, and so on and so forth. Lichterschein gitten drilled. He's already finished, this guy. Forget it. Of course, she'll never let him forget this. Yichis. She said, listen, who are you? Whoever knew about you? You became a famous guy overnight because you married me. If you didn't marry me, you'd be laying there who knows where. Nobody would ever know you're alive. Look what I did for you. I gave you a stature. I gave you a station in life. I made a mensch out of you. This poor guy, he drops dead every time she tells it to him, and she keeps reminding him about this. She doesn't let him forget so quick whose daughter she is and whose son-in-law he became. The ones with the beauty, I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that beauty goes away. This is the way God made it. When you're young, you're attractive. Same as with a man. He gets a little older, he gets some creases, he turns gray. He's not the same guy that he was. He hasn't got the same speed that he had. He hasn't got the same acumen that he had. The lady is no different. She doesn't hear so good. She doesn't look so good. And she patches her face with all the paints and it doesn't work. And the creases are there. And they are the bags under the eyes. And it's not the same young lady that he had when she was 18 or 20 and she was such a raving beauty. Because this is what age does to you. And as you get older, and all of a sudden he realizes, look what I married. Hey, look what he married. He made this out of her. He doesn't forget that. So all of a sudden, look what he married. Opportunity. You find there are certain people, after they get married, he thinks he got the whole world behind him because he got the opportunity. The end of the story is that the opportunity wasn't there. This was only some kind of a figment of his imagination. And because he thought that this is going to give him the opportunity to be able to get up in the world, and then he finds that it fails, this makes him go crazy altogether, and he decides, look, I never loved her anyway, so why did I marry her? I only married her because of the opportunity. Here the opportunity failed. Who needs her? Let her go. And I always have this this before me. You know, I write Gitten, divorces. And I have many, many times when people come to me and they were, it seemed to me they were a very happy couple. Everything was great. Before their marriage, they were schlepping around for years. For years, they were schlepping around. And this guy saw her in every single way you can expect. He saw her with curlers in her hair, and he saw her with lipstick, without lipstick, and everything. And she was the greatest thing that he could pray for. All of a sudden, they're in for a divorce. What are you getting divorced for? Well, you know what he is. I said, but you knew the guy for 6 years. What are you telling me now you know what he is? Didn't you know what he is? You know what a schlock that is? You know what a serpent this is? A real snake. She takes your life. She drinks my blood every day. I said, I didn't see her drinking any blood before. Why didn't you see it? She never took a drink on you before while you were walking around? What is this episode all of a sudden? But this is what it is. And they go crazy. I don't believe in long courtships. I believe a courtship should be a very, very simple and quick one. The idea is as follows. If you find the girl that you think you love, if you find the girl that you think will make a great partner to you in life, if you find the girl who you feel is someone that you could live out your life with without having, God forbid, any heartache, then you should move ahead to consummate it and to get married. Now, if you have doubts, if they are the kind of doubts that could be spelled out by a rabbi or a marriage counselor or by a doctor or something of that sort, then you go and you speak, and if you can't have a clear picture of the situation, then it's not for you. Because if you're getting married with doubts in your head right away, then those doubts are going to come. There'll come moments, you see, in life when everything isn't so hotsy-totsy, and all of a sudden this will perk up. And when it perks up, it gets you crazy. So all of a sudden you begin to think what a fool you were all along. And why did I marry her? Why did I do this all along? And so on and so forth. You know, the Gemara says, there weren't such wonderful days to Klal Yisroel as the 15th day of Av and as Yom Kippur. This was the time when the Jewish daughters went down and they danced with borrowed clothing. The dresses that they had, they were borrowed so that not to embarrass anyone who didn't have. And they used to sing, Bocha, Sona Erecha Orei. Young man, lift up thine eyes and see. Tend Einecha b'mishpocha. Put your eyes on the family. You have to see where I'm coming from. Who is my family? Who are my brothers? Who are my sisters? Who are my parents? Who are my grandparents? What kind of a house am I coming out of? What kind of an upbringing did I have? Just don't look at my beauty, my outer beauty. This is not what should make the decision for you. What should make the decision for you is what kind of a quality do I possess? And if I am the kind of an individual that you will be able to appreciate. I heard one of the speakers say that the job of a husband is to make his wife happy. I don't know what that means. I never made my wife happy yet. I don't know what that is. I don't know how you work that. You go over to the lady and say, how do I make you happy? I should dance on my head. Now, what are you supposed to do? This I don't know. There are certain things that the former speaker said which I don't personally understand. Maybe he understood it, but I don't understand it. There is an obligation. It's not a question I got to marry a lady to make her happy. She wants to be happy. Let her go and put a comedian on and sit, laugh all day. She'll be happy. I mean, what's our business in this? My job is to make her happy. My job is if I got to marry her, I have a responsibility. And we're going to have happy moments. We're going to have not moments that are not so happy. So what is this episode? All of a sudden I got a new job. I got to become a jester. I got to become a comedian. And the whole day, if she's walking around brooding, I got to walk in there, crack a joke, and think, hey, what is this over there? This is not what a husband's job is. A husband's job is to live with the woman. You know, you got to realize that marriage in itself is a 50-50 proposition. I always say this. It's a 50-50 proposition. Does anybody really know what kind of a life he's going to have with this woman? The best. Let's say he found a race, that which he really dreamt of as the most beautiful, most wonderful lady in the world. This is what he really wanted, and he got it. But does he really know what's going to be? Does he really know how it's going to work out? Remember one thing. Two people come from two different Anschauungen. People come from two different worlds. Two different types of upbringing, two different sets of values, two different sets of priorities, two different ways of life. And all of a sudden, the Rabbeinu Shalom takes these two people and brings them into one house under one roof in one room. And what does Torah say? V'hoyu levosar echad. They are to cleave, to be one body. In other words, there cannot be the concept of a separation between one and the other. What does Torah tell us? It's an interesting thing. In English, marriage is called an institution of marriage. Right? That's what they call it, marriage, an institution of marriage. Do you know what an institution is? Do you know what an institution is? Do you know how many different facets there are in an institution? Do you know how many different parts to make up an institution? Which is to tell you one thing, marriage is an institution. Marriage isn't just a one single act. And with that you have provided and fulfilled everything. You have to know there are ups and downs. There are good moments and bad ones. There are moments when you're going to have your quarrels, and there are moments when you're going to have your rejoicing. You're going to have your moments of sorrow, and you're going to have your moments of happiness. God forbid two people get married and one gets sick. What do you do then? She was healthy, she was wonderful, he was healthy. All of a sudden, there's a whole change in the house. It's not the woman that he married. He didn't foresee this kind of a tzur. Or she didn't foresee this kind of a tzur. So what do? You throw the guy out on the garbage can and throw him on the dump truck? Or the other way around? If it's levasa echad, you stick with each other and you try to pull through, and you give the man the encouragement that he needs. You're being deprived. You're being deprived. But that's what marriage is all about. This is what marriage is all about. Just like the way if you're bosa echad, you don't want to cut off a part of your body and send it off. That's the way you can't separate from your husband or your wife, your spouse. They are part of your life. They are bosa echad. And if they are bosa echad, they have to be dealt with as such. And no matter what happens in life, you have to be able to make the best of it. That's why I said you have to pray to the Rabbeinu Shalom that you meet the right wife. You have to pray to God that your life should be a good one, that there shouldn't be any sickness. There shouldn't be any heartache. There are different situations that could come up. Sometimes a child. You have a child that goes bad. And because of this child, there's a fight between husband and wife. And because of the child, there's a breakup in the family. Because they don't see eye to eye on how to approach the child. The mother wants to give in and the father doesn't want to give in. So what happens is the victims are the parents, so they get divorced. Because they're not he doesn't want to put up with this. So it's something that came from left field. That were they supposed to know that this is going to be 18 or 20 years later, never, and have this this kind of an unglick? This is a whole different situation. So when things could happen in life. So if when you meet the girl for the first time, and you decide that you think that this is maybe for you, and you go on a little bit further, you go a second time, a third time, a fourth time. After the fourth time, you should be ready to bring the girl into your father's house and to introduce him to your parents. And if you feel that this is the one that you want to make your life together with, you have to remember right away that this is a commitment for life. A commitment for life. And that's why when you're under the chuppah, my dear boys, you drink from the same cup. When you make the Sheva Brachas, they don't have a cup for the woman and a cup for the husband, for the chosn and the kala. There's one becher of wine, and they give him to drink, and they give her to drink. You're going to drink from the same cup. And whatever that cup has in it, we pray it should be mole brachas. It should be mole simchas. But chalila v'chas, if there's something in there that's not so perfect, if it's bitter, if it's sour, you're going to have to swallow it together. You're not going to say, hey, that's your cup of wine, I got another cup of wine. No such thing. Everything is united as one. There's no separation. And where there is a separation, if it's two worlds under the same roof, after marriage, that's when it's going to end up in a divorce. Sooner or later, they're going to kill each other. Sooner or later, they're going to get rid of each other. Sooner or later, it's going to be a whole milchama over there. And this is what it's all about.